This is the Odd Atheist Friends podcast. What you are about to hear is just the opinions of Matthew and Erik, who are the hosts. This podcast will talk about life, love, politics, religion, and whatever else runs around their heads in the moment. Their opinions are just that, opinions, and only their opinions. It does not represent anyone else but them at that moment in time, not just significant others, family, friends, employers, companies, or anyone else that they might know. You are probably going to hear cuss words. The hosts cuss, and really don't care if any of the guests cuss too. If you are offended by something, this podcast isn't for you. But if you like what you hear, keep listening. Thank you for listening to the Odd Atheist Friends podcast. So, welcome to the inaugural episode of Odd Atheist Friends podcast. I am Matthew, one of your hosts.
I'm Erik, your other host.
And we are Odd Atheist Friends. And you might be thinking, why Odd Atheist Friends? That's an interesting story, isn't it? Let's talk about that. First off, my name is Matthew Maxon. I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised. Erik?
My name is Erik Ryder. I'm from North Carolina, born and raised.
And what's interesting about this is that I started out at life, I was born and raised here in Chicago and all that kind of stuff. Always like really smart, but I grew up very poor. And so I ended up joining the military and going to the military at 19 because I wanted to go into the ministry and couldn't do that. And the reason why this is odd is because as a conservative Christian, and even somebody as far as 15 years ago, wouldn't have told Erik hello. I just wouldn't have done it. That's the kind of person that Erik is, I wouldn't have talked to. I would have said Erik was a sinner. And now, I'm not like that. I became an atheist in 2007 at the age of, how old was I? God, 36, 35? And so here I am now 7 years later in a podcast with Erik. So, your side, Erik.
Well, when I was growing up as a little girl, I was definitely raised in a Christian household, but I always questioned it and I always felt very strange about it. But I just always said I was a Christian just to appease everyone and to fit in. But once I got out of high school and moved onto college, I was definitely an atheist and definitely questioning my gender and my sexuality. So now I've figured out that I am a man, but not only that, I'm a gay man and an atheist. So,
Yeah,
I'm everything the world hates.
I wouldn't have said 5 words to you if I wouldn't have said anything more to the effect of, drop dead, you fucking sinner heathen. That would have been something that affected my words. But I think maybe I should kind of talk a little bit about what happened between now and then, like all that time ago. So yeah, it was, like I said, born and raised here in Chicago, grew up really poor. I was a horrible high school student. Always really smart, but I was always bored in school and never did very good. And I barely graduated high school. I had just enough credits to graduate, and I'm so glad. I enlisted in DAP delayed entry program when I was 17 years old and left for the military exactly 11 months to the day later in July of 1990, and I just turned 19. I did 2 years in the 4th grade. Let me just put that out early. So, yes, I did 2 years in the 4th grade, so that's how I graduated at 19 instead of 18. So, always knew pretty much for the most part I wanted to be in the military. At first it was the Army. I wanted to go into the Army. But then after thinking about it for a while, thinking shooting guns is cool, but it really kind of sucks when people shoot back. And so I decided that going to the Navy would be better. It's funny because I didn't even really learn how to swim until I was in high school. So, yeah. Um, I first went in as a boiler technician, worked on boilers and that kind of stuff, and went through Boiler Tech A school in Great Lakes, which is just north of Chicago. So I would basically could come home every weekend if I wanted to. I didn't a whole hell of a lot. And then went to my first ship in Charleston, South Carolina, the USS Blakely, FF 1072. When I got onto the ship was older than me by about 15 years. So yeah, it was kind of fun. And then after my first ship decommissioned, I went back to school as an engineman, and then went back up to Great Lakes, and it was a lot better because going back up through A school as a out of boot camp, you're not given a whole lot of privileges, but as a fleet returnee, I had a whole lot of privileges. And then I went to my first shore duty after that at the Naval Diving and Salvage Training Center in Panama City, Florida. I was 21 years old. Spring break was 9 weeks long, and there was schools there every week. Not too bad. Living in a barracks in 21, I had a pretty good time. Um, yeah, at this point, I think maybe I've been about 2 years in. After that, I went to my second ship, the USS Harper's Ferry, LSD 49, large sitting duck, landing ship dock. The pre-com was in San Diego, and then after commissioning in New Orleans, was stationed out of San Diego, and I did two deployments for Operation Southern Watch, one in '96 and one in '98 at San Diego. By the time I left that ship, I was beginning to question my Christianity, and then I went to my next shore duty, where I was military police. I held the Naval Enlisted Classification 9545 law enforcement specialist. And so I was basically started out in patrol, and I did my whole time in patrol. But for the last year and a half I was there, I was the field training officer for my section. And while it was a lot of fun, during that time was 9/11, and 9/11 happened maybe about a year and a half in, like pretty much just after the midway point. And so then we had other police officers, literally police officers who were reservists, mostly from Virginia area and Chicago area, who came to augment the base. And it was with meeting these guys that really kind of turned my nose sour on being a police officer. So I really kind of wanted to do it when I was going through, and thought it'd be, don't get me wrong, being a police officer is a dangerous job. But I thought, kind of like anything else, there's fun points and good points about having it. But a lot of these assholes just pissed me off. I mean, they were right around in their own, in their cars, and they'd speed all over the place. And so, not knowing who they are, I'd pull them over and they're like, "Hey, man, I work with you." It's like, dude, slow down. And you let them go, and they'd take off speeding again, and you just got sick of it. And that's when I found out that I'm sure that there are a lot of police officers out there who are doing the right thing, but there are too many guys out there who are just jagoffs and abuse the badge, and they're the ones who give the cops a bad name. And until the good cops start singing more about the bad cops and doing shit about it, then we're going to have a problem, and that's my problem with these guys. And you see it all the time. We'll talk about that later, but man, some of these fucking cops out here are just fucking jagoffs. And I've had it happen to me where I got pulled over, where I couldn't roll down my window, so I opened up the door. And would you believe the fucking cop told me I hit him with the door, and he could arrest me for that, Eric?
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I was like,
That's crazy.
yeah, it was like stupid. And he was like, I couldn't roll down my window. And, you got these guys there, and, they're authorized, to possibly shoot you if they've got if something goes wrong. Here I am scared out of my fucking mind. Anytime you see the blue lights, anybody who says they're not scared when they say blue lights is fucking lying. And so it was like I couldn't get my window rolled down, my passenger window, because the guy came up from the passenger side, and I couldn't get the window rolled down, so I opened up the door, And he's like, you just hit me with the door. That's assault on a cop. And I'm like, man, are you fucking serious? Anyways, he gave me a ticket. But anyway, I eventually got out of the ticket. But it was bullshit.
That does sound like bullshit.
It was bullshit. And I'm, you know, and I'm probably about one of the last guys that you'd expect to see pulled over. I mean, generally speaking, because I'm white, we don't get pulled over a whole hell of a lot as far as like statistically going. You know what I'm saying? And and this guy was a jagoff. And so, I could see this guy fucking putting somebody in cuffs for the fucking dumbest fucking reasons. So, anyways, but yeah, it was crap. And then, so when that was over, that would have been '02. I went to my third ship, the USS Kearsarge, LHD 3. It kind of looks like an aircraft carrier, but it doesn't have the slope off to the side, doesn't have the angle deck. And it's marine transport, LHD 3, large landing helo dock, that's it. And then right after I got there in November of '02, like late November. Actually, December 4th is when I got there, '04. December 4th of '02, and we left to go to Iraqi freedom less than a month later, like January 5th. We left to go pick up Marines in North Carolina from Lejeune. And then I was gone for like 9 months and didn't come back until September. And then I went back again in '04 the next year, and went back again in '05. And got divorced. My wife left me. We had problems. We got divorced. And by the time I left in '07, when I got to Japan, a month after I got to Japan, my divorce letter came in the mail finally. So I was a free man. Yay! And
Yay.
yay, fucking bitch. And then, and then, uh, I was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan, and I was put into hazmat. And it's funny because why do you want an engineer who works in hazmat? Because the supply guys just order a grease. To them, they don't know what a grease is. A grease is a grease is a grease. That's why they have us engineers to keep the guys in check, because we can read the maintenance and go, well, this you need, this you don't need. You don't need as much of this. You need more of this. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good thing you were there.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of their plan. So while I was there, my last thing that I was doing was I was in charge of all of the shore-based hazardous materials lockers for the base. I was the locker manager. So I had 285 hazardous materials lockers that I was in charge of, and I had myself and one other guy who did that whole job. And
Wow.
yeah, the person who was there before me did not give a fuck. And so it took me about a month of reading the programs and getting it back into schedule and writing the schedule and then readapting the schedule. And then I actually got a naval accommodation, a naval accommodation medal. I got a NAM, a commendation medal. I got a naval accommodation medal for when I left for revamping the project. So that was actually my highest award.
That's really great.
Yeah, you know, I retired as an E6, petty officer first class, engineman, petty officer first class, basically king of the peons. Um, in July, it was funny. I had saved up like enough leave, so I was training my relief starting in February, and then starting that month in February, I had 20 days of leave saved up. So I took 20 days of leave in February, 20 days of leave in March, 20 days of leave in April, and then went to Washington to out process, and then took 45 days of terminal leave. So I was on vacation almost the whole entire time the last 4 months. And I'd saved up all my leave while I was there. I did not go anywhere so I could go on vacation. I,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't want to do anything. Um, yeah, and then after I got out, after I retired, I didn't get out. I retired. There's a difference. Um, yeah, I still actually hold my rank. A lot of guys who got out, I didn't. I retired, and actually I'll fully retire in 3 more years, in 2020. Because they can call you back for 10 years after you get out. You don't technically retire until you get 30 years. So the guys who do 30 years and then get out, they're retired. But since I got out at 20, I still got that 10 years of inactive reserve. That if there was World War III, like there might be, I might get called back
Yeah.
in. Fucking Trump.
Yeah, fucking Trump.
Fucking Trump. As I like to call him, Cheeto Uh,
Yeah.
it so fucking fits. Um, so yeah, so in 3 more years, I'll actually be retired, and even if there was World War III, they wouldn't call me back. But I'm too fucked up now to even go back as it is. I'm in so much pain all the time, every goddamn day. So, how do they say? Better living through modern chemical science? Hell's yes. So, yep, keep my pain managed. And
Well,
then
that's
it's kind of funny. I live in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, and the local junior college is called Moraine Valley Community College. And one of the reasons why I decided to go into the military is because I didn't want to go to fucking Moraine. And
shit.
you can hear it already, can't you?
Yeah.
So I got out, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go. So my new wife and I, my wife now, I met her in '08, Sachi, or Sachi for short. We got married in '09, and we've been married ever since. So it'll be almost 9 years this year in July, June. Um, and so I was living with my uncle, and he said, well, the economy was shit. And I'd put out like 800 resumes in like 8 months before. And you know how many interviews I had with 800 resumes, Eric?
Zero.
One.
Shit.
And that was right before I left Japan. The guy called me in, and if he would have done one of two things, if he would have either paid me $2 more or had my household goods shipped back, I would have taken the job. But he didn't want to do neither. So I left Japan, and then came back, and my uncle said, "Well, you got the GI Bill. Why don't you go to college?" I'm like, "Well, shit, I didn't fucking think of that. Thanks." And I'm serious. I didn't even think about it.
Wow.
And yeah, I had no idea what to do. I mean, I was like, "Well, fuck, I gotta fucking hit the pavement, man." And he's like, "You got fucking GI Bill, man. Go to college." I'm like, "Well, shit, yeah." And so I went down to Moraine Valley and enrolled. And basically I stretched an Associates of Arts in Science and Stationary Engineering from 2 years to three. So instead of taking like 18 hours a semester, I took like 12. I just took my time.
Yeah, I think
And
it's better that way anyway.
yeah, I'm glad it really kind of worked out. But I actually had a really good college career though too. My first semester kind of sucked. I mean, because it was your first semester out, I didn't know what it was in. You know, uh, just that adjustment period from getting out of the military, and it was a pretty rough semester. But by the time I hit my second year, I was getting all A's, and I ended up in Phi Theta Kappa. So I graduated actually as a member of the Honor Society. So the 2 year college honor society. I don't know if that fucking means anything, but it looks great on my fucking resume. And I'm a member. I'm still an active member, so I paid my dues. Blah blah blah. So that's great. And by the time the end of it goes, um, I went from secretary of the Veterans Club at Moraine Valley to vice president to president while I was there. So I was the president of the Student Veterans Association. So And it's actually an association. It's not a club. We didn't have to reinstall every semester or every year. It was an organization, so it went from year to year. And I kept it going through some really thin times. So I've been back a couple of times and said hello, and it's doing a hell of a lot better, but I kept it going through some really thin years. So a lot of veterans, when they get out, just don't want to self-identify, don't want to have anything to do with the military, or they think the military. And it's not about being in the military. We're not up there doing left, right, left, man. It's about being supporting, and I mean, met a lot of cool dudes up there, and we helped each other through a lot of shit. Like, hey man, I got you with this. I can help you with this. Just shoot the shit and tell sea stories.
Yeah, I think that's important.
But you know what the difference is between a sea story and a fairy tale?
What?
Fairy tale begins once upon a time, and a sea story begins this ain't no shit. So
That's pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah. Thanks. I can't take credit for that one, but yeah, it's an oldie. But yeah, uh, I actually felt really bad one time. My first math class, I went there because I've been 20 years since I've fucking taken a math class. I mean, last time I taken a math class when I was in high school, and this was 20 years later, so I had to take like some algebra again. Some
Right.
095. And
Yeah.
and so I'm sitting there getting ready for my first test, and I'm not doing too good. I mean, I just really can't get this railed down. And the teacher, I forget her name, but she was a young teacher. This was her first time teaching. I think she was her first time teaching after getting a certificate. And she looks at me, and she's like, Matthew, how you doing? And I looked at her and said, I was less nervous in Iraq.
Oh my god.
And the look on her, I mean, she went stunned for a second. I saw her face kind of widen for a second, kind of get a grimace. And she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, I was less nervous with people shooting at me. I'm like, I would rather be doing that than this right now. She's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." I failed the test too. I mean, looking back now, I feel horrible that I said that to her. Uh, did you ever see the movie Billy Madison where he's sitting in the fourth grade class and looking around? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, I love that movie.
That's exactly what it felt like going back using my GI benefits. I I literally could have been any one of their dads. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
I can see that.
You
That it would
know,
feel that way.
here I am nervous about my first time back in school, taking my first test, and it's fucking algebra. And I always hated math. Always hated math. I was really good in like history and some science, but I've never been very good at math. And here I am taking a math test for the first time, and it's my first test of my college career. First time sitting back in the classroom in 20 years, and she's asking me how I'm feeling. You really want to answer that? I will tell you the answer. I did. The look on her face, I feel so bad about saying that to her now. I wish I could apologize. But I feel bad about saying that to her. So, anyways, to the religious side, um, I accepted Christ when I was 5, and my church was just down the street from where I grew up, Palos Hills Christian Assembly. It's about 105th and 88th Avenue on 88th Avenue, where Palos Hills, right down the street from where I live, and literally across the street from Moraine Valley, the college where I went. And uh, I was saved when I was 5. Where vaguely remember hearing something about hell and burning alive in a fucking lake of fire. What a horrible thing to say to somebody. Thinking about it now, what a horrible thing to say to somebody. But yeah, I mean, so as any impressionable child at the age of 5, I didn't want that. I mean, every child has burned his finger at some point or another, and imagine that for all over your body for forever. Holy fuck! What a horrifying thing to say to some kid. We'll get to that. at some point, I guess. But yeah, so I accepted Christ when I was 5, and then I got baptized when I was 15. My church, you really had to get to an age of reason and accept what you were doing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but they were a really conservative group, but there was definitely an age of reason when it comes to baptism and stuff.
That's
Excuse
really
me.
good.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I bit into it, hook, line, and sinker. I was the kid who occasionally brought a Bible to school, even in high school. Fuck, I was weird. Uh, Man, I really wish to say I wasn't, but I was a fucking weird kid, and religion had a lot to do with it. Um, I didn't even learn how to talk to women for many, many years. I'll get to that in a few minutes. But yeah, I was a weird goddamn kid, ultra religious, convinced everybody who didn't go to my church was going to hell. And
Oh God.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I was really into science fiction, and I was a weird little fucking kid. Um, but yeah, about the age of 25, I'd say I was in boot camp on every day, every night on my knees in boot camp praying by my bunk. I was one of those guys, and so yeah, slightly racist. I would probably say I was, without a doubt. I didn't like a whole lot of people that weren't white. And I'm ashamed to admit that. But I was semi-racist, and I know of people who know of people who were in racist organizations, probably 2 or 3 steps away. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Do you remember that? I don't know if you remember the movie The Blues Brothers, but do you remember the Illinois Nazis that
Yeah.
they talk about there? That actually fucking happened with Illinois Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois in like 1978. That's a real fucking event. There
Holy shit.
are, yeah, fucking horrifying. Um, there are racist groups in the Chicago area, several of them, at least according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah, so I know people who know people who know people. I'm glad I'm not a part of any of that bullshit. Not knowingly, anyways. You know what I'm saying? I'll get to a job. Maybe I'll tell a story about one of the jobs I had when I got out. Um, but yeah, that's how I was for like the first 5 years I was in the military. And then when I got to my second ship, I started being a supervisor. I was a low level supervisor by the time I got to my second ship. So had to kind of dial back the religion bullshit, because you can do that more when you're junior. You can be that real religious nerd kid, and nobody's really gonna fucking say anything to you about it. You know what I'm saying? As long as you perform, they don't give a shit. You know.
Yeah.
Um, when you start being a supervisor, man, that's not a fucking way to lead people. And being a leader, supervisor, you got to pull out all the tricks, and to get people to perform and keep them performing. And being an ultra religious nut asshole isn't a way to bring out everybody's best performance. So I learned I had to kind of dial that back. And then by the time I got to my shore duty, my last shore duty, the internet was there, and I was starting to read on the fucking internet, and I was reading books, and um, maybe about 6 months, I went from being an theist, kind of a social theist, you know,
Mhm.
you know, uh, what I'm talking about, a societal Christian, you know what I'm saying? Nobody really give a shit, but
Yeah.
went along and you know went to uh, Christmas prayer, and you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. Well, about 6 months of reading books. Richard Dawkins was really big into that, the God Delusion, as well as the Greatest Story on Earth, the book about evolution, and reading Harris and Hitchens. Um, uh, Basically, those guys, the the four horsemen, basically. I went from being theist to atheist, and then 6 months after that, I went from atheist to anti-theist. So, uh, do you know what an anti-theist is? Or maybe I might
Uh,
say it for somebody else who may be listening. An anti-theist is somebody who not only doesn't believe in a god, but believes that religion is detrimental to us as a species. And I firmly believe that. The reason why we are not further along in so much bullshit is because of the religions. You know, George Bush Jr. not wanting to fund stem cell research is because he believed that the stem cells were from babies, and then the babies, they were alive because God put it into mommy's tummy. You
oh my
know,
god.
yeah. Basically, I mean, I'm paraphrasing a lot, but I mean, so he was against abortion because he felt that at the moment of impregnation, that's when you got a soul.
Yeah,
So that's why the religious people are against stem cell research. It's fucking crap, but that's
yeah,
what they believe. And almost every war that we got going on today is religious in nature, whether it's one religion on another religion, Christianity versus Jew, Jew versus Muslim, Muslim versus Christian, or whatever, or or between the own religion, like between the Sunni and Shia. Um,
yeah,
that's Syria right now, between Sunni and Shia, part of it. Um, and that's actually what happened in Iraq, was Sunni and Shia too. With the overthrow of Iraq, when they overthrew the king in, what was it, 1968? The Iraqi king in 1968, the Ba'ath Party took over. But yeah, that was basically between Sunni and Shia too. So I'm please forgive me, I'm really paraphrasing and glossing it over. So I mean, it's way more complicated than what I just said. But I'm just
yeah.
giving just the the 2 sentence definition of it. So I don't want to get any nasty hate mail about it. Just a gloss over. Don't kill me. Um, so yeah, all the religious fighting now is almost all of it is religious in nature. At some point of it is all religious in nature. So if we don't find a way to kill religion with rationalism, religion will kill all of us, because we know for a fact that there are religious groups out there who would love to get a fucking nuclear weapon and detonate a fucking dirty bomb anywhere in the United States, or hell, in Europe or whatever, because they know that the United States will support them. And that was even with people who I'd consider moderately sane would support him. You imagine what fucking Cheetolini would do if some fucking Muslim terrorist group blew up a fucking dirty bomb somewhere? Holy fuck.
I don't want to imagine that.
It's horrifying. He would
Yeah,
nuke somebody. I think he would. I really think he would fucking nuke somebody. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I really think he would.
yeah.
So, yeah. So, and I mentioned it. I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago uh, with somebody, and right now the name is escaping me because I'm an asshole. Doubting Dogma of Molly on Mormon. They asked me a question and stuff, and about what how I'm different now from being a Christian. And when I became an atheist, I actually think that I became a full human. I don't mean to say that people are lesser human, but I really came into my humanity. I stopped thinking that people were fallen sinners and needed redemption and healing, to this is how people are. This is their lives. Now, everybody needs improvement and all kinds of stuff. I mean, myself included. Um, but I don't think of them as sick and fallen and needing the cure for sin in their lives. and hence with gay people. When I first went in the military, I was asked directly, "Are you a homosexual?" And you couldn't serve in the military if you said you were. And that was in 1989, so not that long ago.
Yeah.
And then it was Clinton in '92 or '93 when he got in '92. Clinton instituted "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" as a law instead of an executive order, and it was a half step. Now, you may have been too young, but there was a lot of people who wanted open admission of homosexuals in the military, and "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" was a half step, and it was a bad one, but it was a half step. And the
Right.
problem is that it was actually not a military mandate or an executive order. It was actually a federal law. That's where a lot of problems came in because, well, the thing is that before "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," nobody cared. You know what I'm saying? I mean, unless I think about the only time anybody ever got kicked out is like if somebody sexually assaulted somebody or something like that. That would have been like the only time. Nobody cared if they were gay or not. I mean, I remember a senior chief on my first ship, who was obviously gay, but nobody said anything to him. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody said anything. But on the second ship, it was like this was, the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," and there was one guy, and we would probably call him a metrosexual now, but there was a guy on my second ship who was an electronics technician, and he worked with the cryptological stuff. So he's the one who, the secret codes. Actually, he dealt with the machines that dealt with the codes. Do you know what I'm saying? He didn't deal with
Uh-huh.
the codes themselves, but I mean, classified orders come in for the ship to go do whatever. They've got to come in over machinery. You know what I'm saying? Radios and that kind of stuff. And he maintains that. And we were in New Orleans, and this guy would bring some of the baddest women I've ever seen in my life to the boat. Fucking fine. I'm talking like, wow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And and he was just a well put together. Everybody was, the metrosexual was coming out at that point. You know what I'm saying? So guys were grooming themselves and that kind of stuff. Not looking like fucking pigs. And
Yeah.
I just think he just wanted to get out because he told his chief, he was like, "I'm bisexual." He had lost his security clearance by lunchtime and was off the ship by dinner.
Oh my God.
That fast. That
That's
fast.
crazy.
I just think he just wanted to get out. He was fucking miserable. I just think he just didn't want to deal with the bullshit anymore. And then for the whole entire time, from then on, from the whole entire time for the rest of my military career, "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" was the law. It actually was the law. But by the time I got to my third ship, uh, you know, uh, 2005, 2006, nobody cared if you were gay or not. I mean, there were people on my third ship who I knew were obviously gay, and I didn't care. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared at that point. I mean, it was like beyond it. You know what I'm saying? It stopped being a big deal in society by this point. And the military is a microcosm of society too. It really is. And when you're on ship, I mean, you're with these people 24 hours a day. You know, um, you know, you go on deployment. And there's only so far you can go. My last ship was 700 feet long. I mean, there's only so many places you can go, and it's pretty tight quarters. There's always somebody up 24 hours a day. There's always somebody on a smoke deck. I mean, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I knew guys who were obviously gay, and there was one guy who he literally smoked pot just so he could get off the ship because he didn't want to admit to being gay, but he didn't want to be in the military either. So it was easier for him to get kicked out on a drug offense than it was to come out as being gay because you could
Shit.
actually get a better discharge. So he said.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what that's what it was like in like '05, '06, '07. And then when I went to my shore duty, I retired in 10, and then it was my second year in college. Yeah, I was the vice president of combat college at that point. And the military had just announced the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This was 2011 or 2012, something like that. And I realized how big of a thing this was. When they repealed the law, and then the military said that they were no longer prosecuting the people for it, that's a huge step. This is just as momentous as when the president announced a desegregation of the military in, what was it, 48 or 49? A full 10 years before the civil rights. Do you know what
Oh
I'm saying?
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a big deal. Um, the military, in a lot of ways, is really conservative, but in some ways, they've been the vanguard in a lot of things, and they've really done this thing, So they desegregated 10 years before the Civil Rights Act really came up, and administratively removed all blockages from blacks serving in more than just. I'm a Navy guy, so as far as just cook roles and steward roles, because that's what that's all they could do. I mean, so we had guys in World War II. There was a cook in World War II. I don't remember his name, but there was a man. It was the Pearl Harbor movie. Oh man, I can't think of his name. Cuba Gooding Jr. played the black guy in this one part of the movie where he jumped on a machine gun and shot down a Japanese Zero. Actually happened.
Oh shit.
Actually happened. The guy was a cook. He was the captain's steward, and then the captain was injured or killed. I don't remember exactly. But he went to go help somebody else, and the gunner on a 50 caliber was killed, not having any real training on the gun, but he just racked around, and I mean, he's not stupid, he's seen it operate, and he shot down a Zero, won the Silver Star.
Wow.
Yeah, and the awards back then were given a lot less, and they meant a lot. I don't want to say they mean more back then, but a lot fewer awards were given less often. And so for this man, a black man in 1945 to get a Silver Star, it was a big deal. I mean, that was really a big deal. I mean, but then of course we had the Red Tails and everything else too. And Tuskegee Airmen, I mean, the highest decorated fighter group in Europe. And, I mean, we all know that all the coloration bullshit, white supremacy and all that is all crap because we're all people, and these segregated units, they decided that they had to be better just to be even. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, um, so when the rule was repealed, when the law was repealed, because it actually was a law. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a law. When the law was repealed, and then uh, they called themselves Glow, gay, lesbian, or whatever, and then they changed their name to something else. Please forgive me, I do not remember what it is. Excuse me. Um,
That's really
uh,
interesting though. I didn't know a lot of this stuff.
oh, well, I'm glad I'm giving a little bit of an education.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when Glow decided that they wanted to have a celebration for it, I kind of maybe jumped over the president a little bit, the president of Combat to College, and as the vice president, they said that they wanted to have a commemoration of the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I jumped over the president and said that, Matthew Maxon, vice president of Combat to College, Navy retired, and I fully support the celebration of Glow of the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I second the motion, and I want to do a collaboration with them on it. I want Combat to College's name to be on it as a co-sponsor. And that just blew everybody the
Nice.
fuck away. Yeah. I mean,
That's
it
great.
blew everybody the fuck away. that you know that the military group, the veterans were actually wanting to help co-sponsor the group, and so, and this just goes as where I came from. When I was in high school, a gay person, holy shit, I would have called you a fag at best.
Yeah, at best.
At best. Um, like I said, when I left religion behind, I gained humanity. That not everybody's cis. Uh, Sexuality is a sliding scale to some extent. That I know that even uh, uh, I can't think of the name of it. Even our gender is to some extent on a scale. But there are people who are literally born in the wrong bodies. Um, people who want to be male and are born female, and vice versa. I mean, you see this shit all the time. Granted, it's rare as far as the population scale goes, but it's out there. You're one of them. You feel like you were a male born in a woman's body. Am I wrong and mistaken in thinking that way?
No, yeah, I would say that I definitely feel like I should have been born with a male body, and that's a lot of my problem.
Yeah.
Um, then there's also people that are born intersex, which have like physical characteristics of both a male and female body, and then they're just assigned one at birth, and then they're forced to grow up as whatever the doctor decided.
I remember hearing something in sociology class about, I don't remember the name, and it's a fairly famous case where he felt he was male, but the doctor, I mean, he was intersex, and they decided to make him grow up as a female. And so he was like this for a long time, and then unfortunately he killed himself some years later. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a fairly famous case. I wish I could remember the name. I'm horrible with fucking names. So yeah, so when I became an atheist, and like I said, I lost. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it took time to educate myself on some of these things because I had no idea. I knew very few gay people, and only met my first trans person when I was in college. That was my first exposure to a trans person was literally 6 years ago. So for me, it's been a very sharp learning curve. But I think it's something that needed to happen. And like everybody else, I hope I don't misgender people too often. Sometimes it happens, and I'm sorry for it if I do it. But like I said, this is I've come to accept that, and not only accept that, realize that that's really how it is. So there I am talking, and I think I've actually lost my voice somewhat.
Well, you had a lot to say. You're like, what, 60 years old now?
Fuck you.
No, but you've lived a lot of life in 40 something years. So,
46.
yeah.
Kiss my ass with your tongue out.
Uh yeah, there's a
Okay,
lot.
now that I've done talking a fuck ton after you, Eric.
Um well, I'm only 22, so I don't have as much to say, but
Bullshit.
I have a few comments on what you were talking about.
Please,
First, I was in second grade during 9/11.
blow me.
So I honestly I only remember watching it on the TV rolly cart in class, which is really fucked up. It's really fucked up when you think about it. Why would they be showing that to like fucking 7-year-olds? I
I
don't
know, that's
know.
horrifying. I don't get it. Why? Whoa.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they should have been like, okay, kid, something's happening, and you need to go talk to your parents about. Yikes.
Yeah, I guess the early or the late 90s, early 2000s was an interesting time.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I I wouldn't say I was ever saved necessarily. I do remember. I don't know how old I was. Maybe 10 or 11 or something. I remember going to. Uh, was it? Maybe it was like a summer church thing that I went to every year. I think it was called
Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School. Yeah, that's what it
Fuck
was.
yeah, I remember going to that shit. Every
Dude,
goddamn summer.
I fucking loved it because we got to do like fucking arts and crafts and lots of fun shit.
Oh yeah. And then they get to tell you about hell and scare the fuck out of you. Awesome
Yeah,
times.
yeah. And then they like pressure you. They're like, okay, who's gonna
Who
come
wants
to
to
the
give their life to
front?
Christ?
Yeah, who's gonna come to the front and be saved? If you haven't been saved, you need to do it. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll just walk up here. I don't know what this means. And they're like saying, you should be feeling a connection with Christ. You should be able to talk to him. And I'm like, I don't hear shit. Am I, am I doing this wrong? Like, I never got it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess I was technically saved or whatever at like 10 or 11, but I was never baptized or anything.
Okay.
Uh,
Lucky
I thought
you.
about it. Well, I thought about it. I thought that was something I needed to do at that time, but thankfully it just never happened. And then throughout, I mean, it was an interesting change I saw in like my parents too, because I was learning about like science and all these other religions and how fucked up Christianity actually is and how the Bible was actually made and how they left parts out of it and everything else.
Yeah.
And I was educating my parents on this at the same time, and like obviously they didn't really want to listen, but they did. And throughout the next few years they came to realize they probably weren't Christian either, or at least not the full-on crazy Baptist Christian everyone else was.
Yeah. Oh
So
man, when I was in Charleston, I went to a Baptist church. When I was in Florida, I went to a Baptist church because it was closest to what my beliefs were. But believe it or not, the Baptists didn't go far enough.
oh god.
Fuck yeah, I was a wacko.
Well, I'm glad you saw the light. The better light. I'm
God
glad I did
damn,
too.
I'm 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 just amazed and horrified at how bad I was. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
fuck yeah.
I I don't know. I think I always knew that I wasn't like a Christian or whatever. I was just going along to make other people happy.
Yeah.
But it never made sense to me, and like it never made sense to me to for instance, when I was a kid, people told me like I should hate black people. That never made sense to me. And then like when I was in high school and stuff, people were like, "Oh God, we need to hate gay people, and gay marriage shouldn't be a thing," because that was when it was like a big argument. And I was always arguing on the side of, yeah, it should be, even though at that point I thought I was probably a straight female, so it didn't affect me in any way. But I knew everybody should be equal, and it was all fucked up. So, but
You know, there's something I just don't quite understand. You know, how does a joke go? There's only two reasons to be afraid of gay marriage. You're either a hypocrite or you're afraid that dicks taste good.
yeah, I love that one. I think it's really great.
um, now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm cis. I like women. I'm married to a woman. Um, but I think even I can look at a guy and go, "That's a good-looking guy." And now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to have sex with him, but I can go, "There's a good-looking dude." Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that there are
Yeah.
guys who are so afraid to even say that. Either that or they're a little further along on the scale than they think they are. And so they're frightened by the idea of them being able to say, that's a good looking guy, because they're afraid they might go full fellatio on them or something.
Yeah, I think that's
I
an actual a thing, yeah.
I really do. I mean, what was it? Ted Haggard, who was this Christian from back in the day. Even from when I was a kid, and in the '80s, he was all like anti-gay and all this, anti-drug, but yet he was snorting crack, rock cocaine off of a male prostitute's nutsack. I mean,
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding. I mean, he would hire male prostitutes, and they'd fucking be sniffing crank and
Off
having
a crank.
sex. Crank off the crank. I mean, it's like if I this is just my opinion now, but it's like if you're gay, it's okay. You know whatever floats your boat, row on, motherfucker. I do not care what two consenting or more consenting adults do in in their own privacy. It
Yeah.
doesn't make one fuck to me. I don't care. It affects my marriage and my life absolutely zero.
Yeah, I think that's one reason I always question why they care so much. Like, how the fuck does that affect you at all? Like, why would you be against gay marriage or like equal rights for gay and
Crank
trans
off the
people?
crank. I'm still laughing about that. That's
That's
still
the
fucking
best.
funny.
That's probably gonna have to be the name of this episode.
The name of the episode: Crank off the crank. There we go. When I was on Doubting Dogma, I was on episode 4, and the name of that episode was A Bag of Bloody Dicks.
That's fantastic.
I'll tell you the story in a minute. Finish what you were saying, Eric.
Oh, I'm good. You can go ahead.
One of the other big things that I'm on there, two major things that I am really passionate about. One of them is police brutality, and the other one is circumcision. I am a circumcised male. I was born in 1971, and like most other males in my time, we were circumcised. And I've got it better than some, and worse than others, of course. Um, my penis, when it's erect, is very tight. The skin is very tight, and it's tough to move. And there's been a lot of times when I've had chafing due to the movement of the skin. And I've actually had skin tears and that kind of stuff when I had to like wait for my skin to heal up before I could have sex again. Lubrication is always necessary, and it sucks because it's really tight. Um, and this is a problem. For a lot of reasons, it's a problem. How does it go? How did I say it? I'm doubting dogma. The reason why a lot of men are circumcised because their mothers don't want to have a son whose dicks they would be afraid to suck.
Oh my
And
God.
it's a horrifying and blunt way to say it, but I think it's absolutely true that most women now in American culture wouldn't know what to do with a circumcised penis. The look of an uncircumcised penis is weird to them. They don't realize all the damage that is done to a man when his penis is circumcised. So when blood goes into the penis and it becomes engorged and grows longer, you with that skin allows it to grow, allows it to because it's going to get longer. And with the cutting of that skin, it restricts that growth. So my penis could actually be bigger than what it is, but I'll never know because it's tight. And then because of that, even when the penis is flaccid, that because of how the penis, how our how our penises evolve. You know this, Erik, studying penises, that the penis really kind of goes back in to protect the head. And so, um, that one scene in Seinfeld, and I really fucking hate Seinfeld, but this episode is really funny. The fat guy with the glasses, and I cannot remember his name right now, but he's changing clothes or something like that, and a woman walks in and she's like, "I'm sorry," and then looks at him and she goes, "I'm really sorry," and he's like, "It's cold." If he wasn't circumcised, it would be longer because it wouldn't have to grow back as far because of the artificial cutting. It grows back. It goes back even farther. And then there are some times when it can actually almost go all the way back in, and it's painful and uncomfortable, and because the blood vessels shrink. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, um, so circumcision is a really big thing of mine. So you're cutting thousands of nerve endings. So my feeling is nowhere near it should be. That's why circumcised guys push harder when they're having sex because they can't feel it as much. So they've got to push harder while they're having sex because of the loss of nerve endings. And then babies, when they're cut, it can be literally just 2 shot glasses full of blood. So what is that? 3 ounces? Because it's a shot glass is what, an ounce and a half? So three
Yeah.
ounces, yeah, 3 ounces of blood loss in an infant can kill an infant. And there
Yeah,
are
I know.
infants every year who die from infections, from the circumcision. So fecal matter gets into the circumcision, and a baby gets a blood-borne infection from shit. And also, you see these instances where the Moyles have given babies oral herpes. I don't know if it's simplex 1 or simplex 2. I do not give a fuck. You gave an infant herpes. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, herpes in an infant can kill an infant, and let alone the blood loss. Um, who was it? Uh, the do no harm clause that all doctors are given. I forget what the name of it is, but the Hippocratic Oath. Don't they realize that when they are giving circumcision, that it's forcible rape by medical instrument doing harm that doesn't need to be done? What are they doing?
Yeah.
It's horrifying. So, as a man who is circumcised, I am not happy. I did not ask for it. My consent was not asked for, and I'm mad about it. And there are a lot of people who will say, "Oh, I'm not mad. I'm okay." No, you're not. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't
they
realize
don't know the difference.
exactly. They don't know the difference. They don't know that they've been traumatized. And once you realize that the trauma's happened, then you can start to deal with it.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that, other than general atheism, and I don't know, I'm really into more ridicule than trying to reason people out because I'm not a real good rational argument kind of guy, but I will call a motherfucker stupid in a minute and tell him his beliefs are fucking stupid. Um,
Yeah.
and so those really are the things that I'm passionate about.
I'm really passionate about like trans rights and the transgender experience, and
Duh.
obviously it personally affects me. But uh, oh, speaking of the military, last year they changed it so transgender people can serve openly.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it
Um,
was a really big deal for a lot of people.
yeah, that is. I wonder how that's going to happen down the individual, units and that kind of stuff. Because there's, you got your super religious assholes who are going to be absolutely pissed off about it. But, I knew people who were mad that when we started getting women on ships.
Because that's bad luck.
Not only that, but they were like, ugh, everybody's going to be trying to fuck the women. No,
God, I know.
no. Oh. Honestly, when we got women on ship, men actually became more civilized. God damn, some of the things that you fucking. It was a fucking freak show sometimes. I mean, you got to do a lot of stupid bullshit to fucking blow off steam, and people would be doing some fucking horrifying shit to each other. When women came on board the ships, a lot of that shit calmed the fuck down because of like sexual harassment rules and all that kind of stuff. Even if it wasn't directed at her, if it was in the area, do you know what I'm saying? She
Yeah.
could file a grievance. Good.
Shit.
Good.
That is good.
So, yeah, yeah, people actually like calm the fuck down. I mean, goddamn, some of these heathens, out to sea for fucking 4 goddamn months, and then pull into some fucking port, and that's how come, you get these guys fucking running around with, you know, saying the craziest and stupidest fucking shit because they've been fucking pent up for months.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Uh, Another thing I'm really passionate about is veganism and animal welfare and just all the crazy shit we do to animals
You
in
know,
this
I
world.
I'm actually pretty on pets and that kind of stuff. Don't let me see a motherfucker hit an animal or a woman or a child. Don't let me fucking see it. We are gonna have an instant fucking problem. Now, I know very little about veganism and that kind of stuff, so I'm really interested in to see what you got to say about that. So, um, I'm really interested in to see the conversations that happen for that. So that's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to make it an episode. There's a lot to say about it.
Yeah, get
But
me educated.
yeah, well, a quick 2 sentence education is we're doing a lot of fucked up shit to animals just so we can eat them. So we're raping, murdering, torturing animals, and it's killing humans because it's bad for our diet. It's killing the environment because it's the top producer of greenhouse gases,
Yeah,
and it's disgusting. And it's just torturing billions of animals all the time. And we have the resources to not do that. So,
yeah. What was it? I heard something about what was it? Meat made in a laboratory that is actually becoming cheaper than it was just even a short time ago.
yeah,
So
I think it was like $1,000 a pound or something at one point, but now it's about $12 a pound.
something like that, I heard. Yeah, and so it's coming to a point when it's actually becoming affordable,
Yeah.
and we don't have to kill any animals to do it.
No, I think they just grow it from the cells. So I
Awesome.
mean, technically the cells come from an animal, but it's like a lot less invasive and awful for sure.
All right. Well, that sounds really cool. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah.
Eric, I think it's time to close this episode out, and we will see you next time on Odd Atheist Friends. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Odd Atheist Friends podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact via email at oddatheistfriends@gmail.com or on our Facebook page. This is Matthew and Erik for Odd Atheist Friends. Have a great and godless day.